Work with legislators from all over the state and find that many of them are advocates on many number of issues. However, since taking over as chair of the House Higher Ed and Workforce Development Committee, few, if any, legislators in Minnesota have been a bigger advocate for student issues than Representative Tom Rukavina. Representative Rukavina has always had an open door policy and always asked to hear from students on issues before any other interests. Representative Rukavina truly believes that higher education institutions exist to serve students, and he puts that belief into practice every single day. He never shies away from pushing forward any issue, regardless of opposition, if he believes it will benefit students. His willingness to work on behalf of our students is exceeded by none. The students of Minnesota are fortunate to have such a strong and passionate leader who always has a student-first mindset, working on our behalf in the Minnesota House of Representatives. So, if you'll please join me in welcoming and thanking the 2009 MSCSA State Representative of the Year, Tom Rukavina.
Should I put this on my lapel?
Yeah.
Todd? You certainly can. Must be the technology person. Well, how's everybody doing on this snowy evening? It took us an hour and 20 minutes to get here from St. Paul, and I can't understand why, because it wasn't snowing anymore, and there was hardly any snow on the highway. And where I come from, we'd still be going 65 miles an hour, right? So, listen, first of all, thank you very much. I'm humbled. You know, this award from all of you means a lot more to me than the awards that, the other awards that we receive at the Capitol, because you are, you know, real people, you're sincere about it, and you're not going to come and ask me to introduce a bill for you like some of the other folks that we get awards from up at the Capitol. But, you know, you students, and I've said this, and you know that I've said it not only publicly, but you know I believe it in my heart. You're the reason why we have a higher education system. And every day I worry about what's been happening to our public higher education system here in the state of Minnesota. When I was named chair of the Higher Education and Workforce Committee in 2007, I spent the first month listening to students. I brought students in from the MSCSA system, the university system, from rural parts of the state, the metro area, the privates, for-profits, the private not-for-profits. And, you know, I think it was a very wonderful experience for people on our committee who realized that the pressure that we're putting on our students and the debt that we're putting on them, the stories were all the same. That people were worried about the debt, about tuition increases, and now, what's really sad about having a job when you graduate and being able to repay those student loans and other bills that you amassed because of what's happening not only in this economy, but what's happening at our community technical colleges and at our through our whole MSCSA system and our public higher education system in general. I want to actually, before I say a few more words, thank all of your hardworking staff and the folks that lobby at the Capitol on your behalf, because the folks from the Minnesota State College Student Association, the University Student Association, have been the front runners, and I've said this before to a lot of you, that the university students seem to be absent, and it's your advocates at the Capitol, the folks that you elect and that you've hired, that are up there trying to do things regardless of whether it's for tuition and keeping it affordable, whether it's for the way that we use the state grant program and how it gets allocated, or textbooks or whatever. They've done a great job, and I think that all of them deserve a round of applause from you too. You know, in 2007, we thought we had a little bit of money to work with. We thought we were going to get back finally in our public higher education system to the same funding levels that we had in 2001. Think about it, in 2001, 2002. The 2002, the cuts started. I think in 2003, I was not on the higher education committee then, that we, I guess for lack of a better word, confiscated about $380 million between the university and the MSCSA systems. A little bit of it got plowed back into the state grant program, but not very much. And then in 2007, times were a little better. We thought we had a little more money to work with. We finally got back up above those levels from 5 or 6 years previously. But then, you know what happened to the economy, and now we're facing a huge, huge deficit. And by the way, I want to tell you the truth about what's happening at the Capitol. If you're reading in the paper that we have a $5.3 billion deficit, that is not the real number. The real number is closer to $8 billion when you figure in the shifts and gimmicks and everything else that's being used by this administration and the unallotments that we may end up having to plug because of the recent court ruling. So that deficit is closer to $8 billion. And if this unallotment lawsuit moves forward and the courts find on behalf of the legislature, which I think they should, by the way, I think what Governor Selene did at this session was not legal and was a breach of our Constitution. But if that happens, we're going to be looking at a $4 billion hole for the next 6 months that we're going to have to plug and figure out what to do with. And we really should thank the federal government for the stimulus package, because, you know, the state of Minnesota got $2 billion, and a lot of it went into higher education and K-12, and that's the reason why we have to stay at funding levels because of that stimulus package, and we could jeopardize that money. So our staff is telling me that, you know, the most that could be unallotted is another $32 million, but that's a lot of money considering the fact that we had a governor on a lot, a little over $20 million from each system in November and December of 2008. And last year then, when we went into conference committee, we had evenly funded. We had not cut any money out of the public higher education system in the House, but we had to do some negotiating with the Senate. They had a different K-12 spending bill than us. And so we cut $30 million from each system, and then the governor unallotted $50 million from each system. So you've been hit with $100 million in cuts in just a little over a year again. Let's talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. We've had 7 deficits, I believe, in the last 8 years. And there may not be people that agree with me in this room, but I think most of you would. I didn't vote for the income tax cuts back in 1999 and 2000, where we cut $1 billion a year approximately in income taxes that mostly went to people that could afford to pay income taxes. And that started beginning the loss of revenue. And then in 2001, we changed K-12 funding formulas and a few other formulas that go to local governments, and that cost $1 billion a year. So we lost $1 billion in revenue. We started spending $1 billion more than we previously had on funding formulas, and that amounts to $4 billion a biennium. And basically, that's kind of what we've been looking at, is $3 to $4 billion until this massive $8 billion deficit is facing us. And we've got to get back to, I think, that we've got to get back to fair taxes. Now, again, some of you might not believe that income tax is the fairest way to go. I do. If we increase those taxes back to just what they were in 2000, like I said, when they were cut, we could pick up quite a bit of that money, almost, well, about $3 billion a biennium. And you know, nobody loses a job when we tweak that income tax formula a little bit, and I would make sure that it doesn't harm people on the lower income level. Because if you're making money, I'm sure a lot of you would love to have a job and be able to pay income taxes and pay the debt that you accrued. But when you cut, and you have massive cuts like the governor's talking about, you know the jobs that have been lost in your system. You know the instructors and professors and teachers that you've lost, and other people that have helped you with your financial aid and everything else. And that's what we have to be concerned about at the Capitol this year. I believe in fair taxes. In fact, I always carry this around to keep my head in the right place and my feet on the ground. It's the farmer labor. The Democratic Party merged with the Farmer Labor Party in the 40s in this state. We used to have 3 parties. And the Farmer Labor Party controlled the governor's office and the House of Representatives in 1938. And if you look at this pamphlet, it's like it's today. History just keeps going in cycles. And they're arguing about spending and who's going to pay the tax bill in this pamphlet from 1938. But I'm a person that believes, like I said, in fair taxes, and we also have to be creative and innovative at the Capitol in trying to create jobs for all of you when you graduate, because that's the reason why you're in that classroom. And where I come from, we've been very innovative, I think, in working with the public sector and the private sector, working together to create jobs in Minnesota, and particularly jobs that pay well, that pay living wages. I believe we really have to get a manufacturing base back in this country, so there are jobs available for all of you that pay a decent, livable wage. Is there anybody here from Moorhead here today? No? Well, tell you a little story. You really have to get involved in this process. You have to show up at the Capitol. You have to get your families to show up at the Capitol and show up at campuses and demand that, that you have the services and the instructors and that you need to get that degree that you want to get. Did I lose something here? Can I just shout? Where's the tech guy? Hey.
You bring that mic over there.
I didn't touch anything. It's not my fault. But is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. No, you have to make sure that you participate. Up in Moorhead, when I was visiting there right after the elections, the city council in Moorhead kind of poo-pooed the students that wanted to have a polling place on campus. And one of the council persons made the mistake, I guess, on their public television that night at the council meeting that the students had requested a polling place for both the private college across from Moorhead State. That, students don't vote anyway. We don't need to have a polling place for them. Guess what? The students got motivated, they got organized, they went out and voted, and they threw out 2 incumbents. And that's what it's all about. It's about participating in government and making sure that your voice is heard. It's no coincidence that in quite a few languages the word for vote and voice are the same, because your vote is your voice. And you have to make sure in these times, especially with what's happening to you and what's happening to your pocketbook and what's happening to your quality of education, that you show up and that you make sure that your voice is heard. So when I think, how we're trying to run government on the cheap, it really does disturb me. It's so important for our economy that we provide a decent, affordable education for not only all of you in this room, but all of the people that you represent on your different campuses. I've said this, I think, at MCTC, I think is where I talked about Norman Borlaug, who was given a award, a Nobel Peace Prize. They called him the man who fed the world. And Norman Borlaug came to the University of Minnesota, I believe, in 1930 from Iowa. And Iowa had different standards for math and science. Norman Borlaug was a bright kid, but he couldn't pass the test to get into the University of Minnesota. But that year, they happened to begin their general college. So they actually let him enter the University of Minnesota, upgrade his, I think his science grades or whatever it was, and let him come into the university. And a professor that was working on developing a rust-resistant strain of wheat saw that this kid was bright and should be given a chance. And so he took him under his wing, and hey, quit monkeying with that over there. Took him under his wing, and Norman got interested in developing this rust-resistant wheat. And in 1932, the Depression hit so hard that he didn't have any money to continue. But that was the year that the federal grant, Eleanor Roosevelt, Dr. Osmond, FDR, into starting a federal student loan and grant program. And because of that, he was able to continue. And you know, how many Norman Borlaug's are in this room or in this state that might be the person that discovers a cure for a specific type of cancer or diabetes or whatever, or maybe a new technology on how to derive energy not using fossil fuels or whatever it might be? How many of those people are we cheating out of an education that would really, really benefit society in general? So, you know, I just want you to know that I'm the person that is going to fight for you. I fought for your tuition. I fought to keep it under 5% this coming year, under 3% using the stimulus package. I've made sure that the $62 million that we received in new Pell Grant money got plowed back into the state grant program and got distributed in a way that benefited the MSCSA system where most of our students are educated in this state. And we all have to work together this session, and I really hope that I see a lot of you up at the session. My door is always open, as has been said here. And I just want to end with a quote from Howard Thurman, who was a author, a philosopher, and a civil rights, active in the civil rights movement, who said, you know, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and do it. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. I want to give you that opportunity. So thank you very much for this award. It's always one of my proudest to receive from the students of the state of Minnesota. So thank you for having me. I got to get off to another event here in Minneapolis, which I'm sure will take me 3 hours to get there. But and I've only got about 45 minutes now. But thank you for having me. Please show up. Do what you can to make sure that you're treated fairly. Thanks for having me. Thank you.